Microphone on. Robert. Would like to call to order for 29th, 2024 meeting of Borough Council. Welcome, everyone. Out of town tonight. It'll be okay. I'd like over to the mayor for the case.
This evening, Nathan Fry from Trinity Church will give us the invocation. Nathan, if you could go to the microphone, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathan Fry, Lititz Trinity. Grew up here in Lititz. Want to say thank you all for serving here in Lititz, our beautiful community. Thank you for our the time that you serve here, and grew up in Lititz. Some of you, some already asked you, are you Lee Fry's son? If you know Lee Fry, don't hold that against me. He was a salesman. My grandfather was William B. Fry, if you remember Fry's Pontiac on Main Street. So that was my grandfather. So if they sold you cars that don't work or didn't work, just don't hold that against me. But it's a privilege and an honor for me to be here tonight. Thank you so much. Let's pray together. Lord, we thank you for our community. We thank you for Lititz. I ask that you give each member of the council wisdom tonight. We thank you for our mayor. Thank you for those who serve in various positions here. Lord, we desire to do your will. We want you to bless our community. Lord, we thank you for the freedoms that we have to agree and disagree with one another. We don't always see eye to eye, but we can walk hand in hand because of our love for you and our love for Lititz. And I ask that you'd bless all the decisions tonight. Give each person your discernment and wisdom, and help us to work together for the betterment of our community here in Lititz, because we love this place that you've given us. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pastor Fry.
Please rise for their pledge of flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag. States of America, to the republic, under God.
And the first order of business tonight will be approval of the September 24th meeting minutes. Council, y'all should have a copy of those. Are there any corrections, additions, questions?
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And is online, yes. Yes, Ken Mobley is online via Zoom. Can you hear us, Ken?
Yes, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Ken. Chris? And at this point, I'm actually going to gavel close the regular meeting so that we can open up public hearings. We have two tonight. The first is conditional use hearing for 153 South Spruce Street garage demolition, and then we have a liquor license transfer hearing. Bear with me as I read through the procedures which are required for the conditional use hearing. The procedure for conditional use hearing before the Lititz Borough Council will be as follows. The applicant will be given the opportunity to present its request to the Borough Council, during which time the Borough Council may ask questions of the applicant. Formal rules of evidence will not apply. However, Borough Council does reserve the right to limit repetitive, redundant information and questions that have no relevance to the issue at hand. At the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, parties represented by legal counsel, if any, will be afforded the opportunity to ask questions of each witness. Borough Council will then ask any additional questions it may have of the witness. After the Borough Council has asked its questions, anyone else present who wishes to ask questions of the applicant will be given an opportunity to do so. Parties opposing the application, if any, will then be afforded the opportunity to present testimony. The same procedure will be followed with regard to cross-examination of those witnesses. At the conclusion of the hearing, any person who wishes to make a statement on the record may do so. If the statement is to be considered as evidence, the statement must be made under oath. The Borough Council may or may not make its decision this evening. It is important to remember that everyone is to be afforded a full, fair, and impartial opportunity to present statements either in favor of or in opposition to this application. Consequently, your cooperation is requested in allowing all witnesses to make their statements. Individuals may be expressing opinions differing than yours and should be afforded the opportunity to do so. Everyone that wishes to make a statement in favor of or in opposition to this application before the Borough Council will have the opportunity to do so. Do not make any statements when you are asking questions of a witness. The opportunity to make statements will come at the conclusion of the testimony in this matter. There is one conditional use hearing on the agenda this evening. And the parties for this application of 153 South Spruce Street garage demolition are in the audience tonight. We have the Eakins here. Okay, thank you, Nathan. And your representative from, you have a representative yet? Larry Zeiss. Oh, okay, wonderful. Thank you. This application, Eakins have owned their home and the subject garage for 13 years. They have made efforts to preserve the garage, but maintain that further maintenance is prohibited. They would like to demolish the garage to permit access to the rear of the property, to permit construction of an addition to their home, after which the demolished garage is proposed to be replaced with a modern two-story structure. And before we hear the applicant's testimony, we need to have the zoning representative sworn in. And Elijah, would you please state for the record whether notice of these hearings were properly advertised?
It was.
And we have proof of publication to be presented as Exhibit 1?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Borough. Thank you.
Elijah, was a property which is the subject of this zoning application properly posted at least 7 days prior to the hearing?
Yes, I believe it was the 6th.
Did you timely mail notice of the hearing to the applicant, members of the board, and all other persons requesting written notice?
None other requested written notice, applicants via email, board via packet.
In addition to the above mentioned notice, did you also post a notice of this meeting on the door of Borough Hall?
I did.
Elijah? And at this point, I can entertain any procedural challenges, subpoena, or party status. Anything of that nature from the audience? Okay. I believe at this point, we have the applicant come forward for the oath.
I do. My name is Larry Zeiss. Zeiss Homes and Renovations, the contractor planning to do the construction for the Aikens. So the plan, we had met first, I believe, back in June, and their plan was to do a two-story addition onto the rear of their home. With the narrow lot and the house takes up the full width and the garage in the rear, there's, I think, about 8 feet on the one side and 2 feet on the other, does not allow adequate space to bring equipment, materials and whatnot, just dumpsters, and that kind of thing. So the only option would have been to go through the neighbor's yard, which they had permission, but would have required removing fence, a couple trees, and a considerable amount of landscaping that would have been obviously costly to replace. Looking at the garage option being old and dilapidated with some rot, deterioration, sunlight filtering through the cracks in the wood siding and so on and so forth. Their long-term plan was to eventually tear that down and rebuild. So we kind of combined the package together. and move forward with that plan. So all that, part of the reason for wanting to rebuild the garage even down the road was it's two bays. One is deeper than the other. They're lower ceilings. They really don't accommodate a full-size vehicle. Just kind of become dysfunctional by today's standards. So the desire was there to build a new garage at some point in time. It just worked. Seemed to be the best to do it at this time.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions? Ken, do
Yes?
you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Any questions from the audience? This application is specific to the requested demolition of certain structures at the site. The matter before Borough Council tonight is not an approval of the underlying proposed use and is not an approval of the proposed land development. It only relates to the requested demolition. And if there's no further discussion, I would looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the 153 South Spruce Street garage demolition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, folks. And then our second hearing tonight is for a liquor license transfer. And the process for this is slightly different. The applicant will present its case. Borough Council members can ask any questions they have of the applicant. After the applicant's presentation and questions from Borough Council, interested residents can provide comments and present relevant information. Borough Council will then officially close the testimony, and we will take action on this request transferred later in the meeting. We have representatives from the applicant here tonight.
Hi, my name's Sarah Elia.
Hi, Sarah.
My name's Aaron Zemer. I'm an attorney with RKG Law on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. And do we need to swear them in as well? Go right ahead.
Thank you. Just a couple of housekeeping items as we get started. I'll pass out what I'm going to mark. Applicant 1. Pass it down.
And if you wouldn't remind repeating that to the microphone when you get there, please.
Yes,
so that
thank you. I'm
everyone-
sorry.
Thank you.
I've handed out to the board a copy of an exhibit that I've marked as applicant's exhibit 1. And I also, Elijah gave us a copy of the proof of publication for this hearing. So I can mark that as Borough's exhibit 1. Indicating that the application that's before the board this evening, or before council this evening, was published on October 10th, 2024 and October 17th, 2024. With that, just by way of some background for the board or for the council for some context, I know these liquor license applications don't come in front of the municipality that frequently. Although I was here, I think just about a year ago for another one, but they are becoming more and more frequent. And I think understanding why is some helpful context. So the exhibit that I handed out to the board shows a list of all of the liquor license currently, or I should say restaurant liquor licenses currently located within the borough. I will note that one of them on here is a duplicate because you'll see the fourth one down shows the application is pending. That's the same license as the one that's listed under the toy soldier. So you'll see that one listed twice. Turkey Hill is also listed twice on here for reasons that I don't fully understand. So with that being said, there's approximately 9 licenses currently within the borough. And I'll note that on here, you'll see that at least 2 of those licenses are held by Turkey Hill and by Wise Markets. The council may not be aware, but restaurants use a restaurant license. That sort of seems obvious, but convenience stores and grocery stores also use the same type of license that a restaurant would use. They would likely be the first to tell you that they don't want to be a restaurant. They don't want people sitting down. They don't want people consuming alcohol on their property. And the reason I point that out for council's benefit is that it has dramatically reduced the number of liquor licenses that are available for legitimate restaurant operators. And what that's created is a system where there was already a finite number of liquor licenses that existed in the market, and you had to go out and find one anyway. But with the likes of Turkey Hill, Wise, Giant, Wegmans, Sheetz, you name it, with those types of agencies or entities acquiring these licenses, it's shrunk the number that are out there. So what's becoming more and more of a necessity is the movement of these licenses from one municipality to another. And that's why we're here tonight. When Sarah and her partner decided that they wanted to move forward with a restaurant, their only option was to buy a license outside of the borough. There were none available for purchase in the borough. There's one that's pending a transfer, but unfortunately, obviously that wasn't one that we could acquire. So we're asking the board to consider approving the transfer of a license from Marietta Borough into Lititz Borough. Once for the borough's or for council's benefit, once a license is transferred into the municipality, it has to stay there for 5 years. So it couldn't be transferred outside of the borough for a period of 5 years. Even if they decided to shut down or otherwise sell the license, it would have to stay there. So there is some, I'll say, consistency in terms of that license once it comes here. So with that said, I want to have Sarah provide the board, or I'm sorry, council members with some context for the operation here. So Sarah, could you just describe the location where you want to put this license and the concept for your restaurant?
Yes, so this is for 2731 East Main Street in Lititz, right down the street, the former Tide House location. And it is an upscale Southern Italian restaurant. Linens, handmade pastas, some cheeses are made in-house, a pastry chef, myself, and we need really delicious wine to go with the high quality of our food and our cuisine. We are not going to be open until 2 a.m. So we are essentially a dinner spot. 3 days a week on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we will be operating for lunch and dinner. The other 3 days of the week, we're closed Tuesdays, are just for dinner. So dinner ends at 10. On the weekends, we'll probably be open until about 11.
Sarah, we were discussing earlier that there may be sort of a recent expansion of your operations there. Can you just briefly describe what we were talking about earlier in the basement area?
Yep. So it just made sense for us to move into the basement space known as the Speakeasy. We are not calling it the Speakeasy. It is a wine bar. Of course, I have Aperol Spritz and other really good drinks there. But for our business plan and for our operations and to really fit my vision as a restaurateur, we did decide to take over the basement.
And Sarah, just briefly, what's your experience in the industry? Owned any other places?
So I am first generation Sicilian American. So my family came here in the 70s, and I grew up in the pizza shops and Italian restaurants. So I am proud to say I'm a stereotype. So I was born with the cooking gene and the business mind. So this is my first restaurant to open up on my own and to be the owner, but I've operated many Italian restaurants. I've been a private chef for years. I cater. So food is my entire identity.
Sarah, do you know approximately how many people you intend to employ at this location?
Currently, we are fully staffed because we were going to have an earlier opening, but I have about 22 employees.
And what's your approximate seating?
87.
You familiar with what I mean by ramp training, RAMP? For council's benefit, we're talking about responsible alcohol management program that the LCB offers. Sarah, are you currently certified as or certainly trained as an owner manager?
I am certified since I do a lot of offsite catering events of large scale. And our GM is also quite seasoned in the restaurant environment, and he's also RAMP certified. And of course, any staff that we have that are going to be handling alcohol, serving alcohol, are also going to be RAMP certified.
Great. That's all I have in terms of questions for Sarah. I just have some brief comment for council, and then I think we can close testimony. the board has any question.
I just had one quick question. When you say you're taking over the basement space that was a speakeasy, is that in addition to the first floor restaurant space, or you're only utilizing the speakeasy basement space?
It's an addition. So the original business model was to just focus on building the first floor restaurant. The two previous tenants did have the basement space as well, and they utilized that and in such a fashion to be a speakeasy or a bar. And I wasn't really sure, but then as construction happened, and I just thought it'd be really great and really beautiful. It's a beautiful space.
It is.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that does not have a different address, so it's comprised within the 27 to 31 East Main Street.
Right.
Sarah, this is me over here. Can I make a reservation?
Yes.
But no,
It'll be
thank,
on open table.
yeah. Thank you for investing in our community. We really do appreciate that. Are you the sole owner of the restaurant, or do you have any partners?
So I am 50% owner. The other 50%, he resides here and in New York. So he could not make it tonight. But his name is Lou Tedesco, and he's the other person that's on our liquor license.
And then I have a question for you. How many liquor license can be transferred from another municipality to like Lititz Borough?
So there is no quota. Well, that's a loaded term, but there is no limit, I should say. There is a quota that every municipality is subject to. It's one license for every 3,000 residents. That number has not been updated in decades. It is a bit antiquated. It's why almost every municipality in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that has liquor licenses is over their quota. I was just in another township the other week. They had one license in their township and they were over the quota. So once you're over that quota, that's what triggers this requirement to come in front of the municipality, in this case, Borough Council, and ask for permission to move an additional license into that municipality. But there's theoretically no limit to how many. That would be up to the Borough Council's discretion at some point if they decided they didn't want to allow more licenses. But they can also leave. That's the other part of it, is that you do sometimes have the number of licenses that are available in a municipality that will shrink because licenses will move out for the same reasons. You know, if somebody's looking to sell their operation and it so happens that somebody from out of the municipality wants to buy it, licenses will leave, and obviously the municipality has no control over that. It's only the receiving municipality that needs to permit it. You're welcome. Just briefly, if there's no other questions, I just wanted to make a very, very quick comment. I won't belabor this, but I do think that this is really the ideal arrangement. Number one, not only is this exactly what a restaurant license is intended for, a true sit-down, fine dining place that would be, I think, a benefit to the borough, and it's already, great food scene. But also, it just location-wise, it just works out well. This was formerly a restaurant. The Tide House operated using a different type of liquor license, but nonetheless is really already was there. Obviously different concept and things, but these are really the ideal type situations that I think makes sense to allow for the transfer of the license. The standard, just very quickly for the council, is that the transfer of the license would not be detrimental to the health, safety, welfare, or morals of the community. And I think certainly that's not the, that obviously wouldn't be the case here. Sarah's an experienced operator. I think will offer something, wonderful for the community and add to its already vibrant culinary scene. So we ask for the council's permission to move the license here.
Thank you for the wonderful testimony. Made all the details.
You.
I would just ask that the exhibits, applicants A1 and what I marked as Borough Exhibit 1, the proof of publication, as well as our application, be made a part of the record. That's all I have. Great, thank you.
Any questions from the audience? None? Okay, I will close the hearings and reopen regular meeting, Lititz Borough Council. And the next item of business is a presentation from Lititz Springs Park, and I believe we have Rich Moats here to speak to that.
Good evening. I'm Rich Moats and president of the Lititz Springs Park. I moved here about 30 years ago, choosing it as a place to live, to bring up my children and improve our quality of life. I committed myself to, at that time, that I would give and back up our community to improve and grow while keeping its charm. I've been involved with Lititz Springs Park now for many years, and seen so many changes. Just a few years ago, Lititz was surrounded by farms, and now it's surrounded by housing developments that all call them Lititz their home. So okay, I'm sorry. We in this room are just a few of the leaders that can keep Lititz moving forward as a thriving tourist town while keeping history alive. Lititz Springs Park was set aside in 1856 as a private park open to the public as a support for people of Lititz and to enjoy for rest and relaxation. Running through the park is Park Lane that in recent years has become a major cut through, both to get to the school complex and the rec center. We've tried changing, doing signs, we've added speed bumps, but there is just so many cars that are recklessly driving through the park, not using it as a park, but using it as a road. We have decided to install gates. There'll be one gate at the parking lot, right past the parking lot, going to the roundhouse. There'll be another gate, so people will not be able to go. You will not be able to go through. You'll be able to go in to the front of the park or the back of the park. This has been approved by everybody. I've talked to Chief Nye, everybody's approval. The police will have capability of opening up the gates, driving through. The fire will be able to have access to go through the park just as normal. So this just basically turns it off as a through road. Google has already authorized the change. You probably won't change for a while yet, but pretty soon that will become a closed road. Any questions?
When is this going to take place?
Start construction is could be as early as next week, but we're planning on having the gates installed. They'll be kept open probably until after the Christmas shutdown. That's the plan now. Basically, so everybody knows about it, so the kids at school know when they come back, it's going to be, the gates will be closed. So that's the basic, what's going on now. The other problem that we have in Lititz is parking. There's been a parking problem in Lititz for a long time. I know there's been studies on parking, and from what I understand, the results have come through that there is no problem with parking in Lititz. But the problem doesn't arrive that there's no parking. The problem arrives is the fact that Lititz doesn't own any properties for public parking. So therefore, nothing can be advertised as public parking. So this map here shows a map of Lititz that I took off of Google just the other day. And it shows parking in Lititz, free, cheap parking lots. And the available places to park in Lititz are Hotel Rock Lititz, Target, Lancaster Airport, Dutch Lanes, and it goes there on to the airport.
That's a walk.
It keeps going down. So in the park itself, unfortunately, the major spots in our main parking lot are being taken up every day by people that are told to park in the park that work in local businesses. And it creates somewhat of a problem for people to come out and enjoy the park and enjoy unload their kids in the parking lot and go and enjoy the park. So we do not know how we're going to fix this because we don't want to charge for parking. We really don't want to put up meters. There may be signage. We're not exactly sure yet. But what I do want to really point out is that in Lititz, all Lititz really has, or all Lititz has is off-street parking. If Lititz is going to continue to thrive as a tourist town, revenue businesses must provide public parking, even if there is a fee. There's one spot that I know of, and I'll just go off the thing on this. That is the old depot on Water Street. Now, I talked to Elijah about this, and I know that they just changed the sign. You must have just changed the sign recently.
The public parking sign that's been at the Triangle has been there for 3, 4, 5 years now.
Okay.
The
And that-
triangle is what you call the
The area,
gravel lot.
the gravel lot
Where
that's
the
leased from
depot is.
Norfolk Southern where the depot used to be.
Because it's actually a triangular shaped lot.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank
Yeah, I thought there was a new sign. It looked new to me when I looked at it today.
Did it? Okay.
Huh? Ah, that's why it looks new. That's I said it looked new. It definitely looked new. What I would like the borough to just really deeply consider keeping this lot as a public parking lot, okay? And if you can make this a public lot, that will take this kind of embarrassing thing off of our tourists that look up and try and find out where to park in Lititz. They see something like this, they're saying, well, we're not gonna go to Lititz, so. And I know it's people don't really know about it yet. So if it is and I know the town does not own it, the town just leases it. But it's still under the town's control. So anyway.
And it's been a public parking lot for 5+ years.
Right.
But yeah, there's been no investment in it because it is owned by Norfolk Southern. It's leased to us. We share the lease with Appalachian Brewing, and the terms of that lease allow Norfolk Southern to basically assume it with 30 days notice and would require us to remove any improvements. So based on that, there's been no desire for for paving, lighting, anything along those lines, based on the terms of those lease. When the Norfolk Southern Railroad is acquired by the borough, I think we can have a discussion about that lot, and if it becomes owned by the borough, then improvements could be discussed. The one thing that needs to be considered, though, is that it's still part of the floodplain and floodway of Lititz Run.
Yes. Yep. That is correct. But still, while it's still a gravel lot, it still could be advertised as a public parking. And I know places like Venture Lititz would love to be able to advertise that also, because they're under restrictions also that they cannot advertise any public parking. So, as well as bus parking. So, you know, we as a tourist town, where do buses park? Where do buses go? You know, even to let people off. It's still a viable location. There's a path to walk down, or you can just walk on the sidewalks to go up to the street. So I just want to just try and push council into getting either that lot or any future lots that are possible to make the community grow and to help the tourism. I appreciate your time. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Rich.
Okay.
Just one question about the road closure through the park.
Mhm.
Does the park board have plans to notify the school and publicly notify the community that the changes are coming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is basically the first notification I was to you all, and it'll be in the paper and it'll go to the school
Okay.
and everybody else.
This is certainly a good start. I see Laura's here tonight, so perfect.
Yep. Okay. Thank
Rick,
you.
thank you for your leadership in the park.
Mhm.
Park is certainly one of the jewels of our community, so thank you for that. You're closing the street. Is that part of your solution to the parking? Help me understand the relationship
No,
between closing the street and the parking.
the closing of the street is really the top priority is security. Okay, it's people, cars drive way too fast and kids are out there playing. And, you know, and unfortunately people either walk on the path or they walk on the road. They generally don't necessarily walk over the grass. And I know, you know, not too many weeks ago, I was going down, of course, I was driving very slow, and there was a couple and their young child next to them. And he just took off and ran right out into the road. And if I was going any faster, it would have been a problem. So, that's really it. It's really safety. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, Mr. Rhoda, if you would come up to the mic for us, please. Thank you.
Mr. Motts, what about events? What happens with that, with parking?
That's a good question. When events happen, usually like any of the major events or larger events open, Park Lane can be closed. I mean, we periodically close Park Lane and really don't get a whole lot of flack from it. People understand that there's something going on and they're closed. Some of those events where Park Lane might be closed or the vendors have to go through, the gates can be open. So the gates can be opened at any time. What's that? Who has the key? There's fobs and there's a key code. So.
Rich, I have a question. Will there be, so the gates are going to be basically down at a section around the round?
Yeah, you will actually be able to see each gate from the other gate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, in order to avoid people driving down and having to turn around because they discover it's closed, are you going to be doing any kind of signage that says no throughway?
Well,
Have you considered something like that, and have you talked to the chief about that? Because I think that may help as well with people going down, having to turn around,
yep.
driving on the grass, that kind of thing.
The signs have been put up for almost a year now. It says private road, no through traffic.
Okay.
Those signs have been up there for quite a while now.
It's soon going to be true, though.
Well, the signs, the signs will now say no outlet. I mean, that might have helped the other day when a tractor trailer tried to pull in the front entrance.
Oh.
Yeah.
And didn't do so well. But, I'm sorry, the beginning of your question, you had another question.
No, it's just about whether where the gates will be, just confirming that I understand roughly where the gates will be, and then also understanding that where the signs will be, if there will be signs telling people that there's no through traffic allowed.
Right,
But I do have another point on the parking that I want to ask.
yeah, there will be. And the thing that you did remind me of is when you pull in the front, the front parking lot, you can pull around, or obviously right now. The back parking lot, we're going to try to change. We may have to get some variances. This may take some time. We'll probably remark some of the pavement that's there now so people can turn around because they won't be able to go through. So, but other than that, we do have plans we would like to eventually increase the size of the parking lot that's on the ball field part. But because it's in the floodplain, we have to go through process on that.
Right. Okay, and my question about parking is to Elijah. If council did want to look into the triangle and the conditions around that, which committee would that be undertaken under? Would that be something that we would assign to the planning commission, or that we could assign to the planning commission to take a look at for us?
I guess what are you looking at? Streets and traffic would be my first instinct. The planning commission. Sorry, Tanea. Planning commission, if it was, looking at improving that from a paving standpoint, possibly, but that would almost be more buildings and grounds if we had control of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your information and for your work on behalf of the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Rich. And in anticipation of your presentation, Steve asked me to just comment on the fact that we know that a lot of parents utilize Park Lane to get their kids to and from school as a thoroughfare. And I think, Chief, he asked me to specifically ask you to comment on whether or not you felt we needed to look at that any further, knowing that once it is closed, the intersection of, say, Orange and Broad and some other locations could get a little bit more congested at those times of the day. Do you want to speak to that tonight at all and what your thought process is there?
Yeah, Rich and I have talked quite a bit about this. I just want everybody to know this isn't actually a gate. It's like an arm that goes down and then comes back up. So all first responders have ability to get through if we need to. So that's not an issue. I'm not going to say how. It's magic, but we're not going to tell anybody. So as far as my opinion is, part of Maple Street coming off of Spruce Street should be, if this is going to go through, should be one way towards the high school. That would not limit any parking. Everybody could come off of Spruce and head west on Maple. And then everybody would just have to park that way. It'd be a one-way street because there's a lot of traffic. It's going to be a lot more traffic that's going to come past the fire hall now, and it's going to come down that street. So there is awful lot of people that cut through there. So that would be my opinion. As far as Orange and Broad goes, that'd be something we'd have to talk with PennDOT about. I mean, we do have those lights synchronized or at least talking to each other from the square up. So we'll have to see what happens. But it will be a learning curve for a lot of these people not to be able to cut through Park Lane. But you got to remember, Park Lane's a private lane. You know, it's not in the greatest shape in the area that Rich wants to cut off either. I mean, it's pretty rough. So luckily enough, we haven't had anybody hit through there. But I mean, I know the kids are going to have to learn a little bit differently too to come through there when they're leaving school. But that would be the only suggestion I have is to look at that part of Maple Lane to maybe make that one way to the west.
Okay.
That's about the only thing I could think of at this point. Maybe talk about something up at Orange and Broad, but I don't know really what would be. In the morning, we have a crossing guard there, and all crossing guard help people across. So there's not really an issue there.
Okay.
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 Thank you.
Chief. Something to keep in our tickler file. Just a comment though, the speed bumps that you have in the park are painful. It really shocks me that people can still fly over those and speed through Park Lane. It's disappointing.
It's interesting you say that because most people, yeah, it is hard on a car. But when you get some of these trucks that these kids drive out of high school, they want to see how fast they can go and how high they can jump.
Yep.
Okay. And a couple big, fast, big, bulky cars do the same thing because they're set up for jumping. So yes, they do. I never heard of what Chief just talked about, having Maple one way. And I think that is a fantastic idea. I mean, there's no really reason because when you get to the top half, it's already one way anyway. It's just the bottom half that's not one way. I know for the 4th of July, we had a terrible mess because that was two-way. We tried to keep it open, and having that two-way was just awful. So I think that was a great idea.
So
Thank you,
what do we
Rich.
do about all this? I mean, it seems to me there ought to be a bit of a plan to think about how people are going to be notified and how we can respond to some of these ideas. Do we just wait and see what happens and then respond, or do we now try to do some planning for what we might anticipate being some problems, trying to correct them?
Yeah, this is why I wanted to bring it up to the council first. I mean, even though, you know, like the chief says, it's a private park and the road is not in good condition. We don't have the money to repave it into a big road. And the park now has to support so many more people. Any more grounds that we can keep as park, as grass would be good to utilize it as a park, not as a road. So that's one of the reasons the decisions were made. I've been talking to Chief about it for over a year now, I think. Yeah.
And if you don't mind, Tanea, I'm going to ask that you put this down as an action item for yourself and get with
From Maple Lane.
with Rich and the chief and start to have some conversations about that and how to notify the public that this is going to happen and get a timeline.
Yeah.
And we can continue to talk about it at Borough Council as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Rich. Any other questions or comments on those two subjects? Anyone online, Rob? No? All right. Thank you. All right. The next order of business will be to approve the resolution for the liquor license transfer. All have hopefully the memory of the presentation that just happened. As a general rule, the Borough Council must approve the transfer unless evidence is presented that will negatively impact the health, welfare, peace, or morals of the borough or its residents, as was stated. If the borough is over or at its quota of licenses, any approval of the transfer must go through the Borough Council. Any such approval should be done via a resolution. If the borough denies the transfer, the applicant can appeal the denial to the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas.
I'd like to recommend adoption of resolution number 992, resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Lititz, Lancaster County, approving the transfer of the restaurant liquor license number R16216 into Lititz Borough, Lancaster County from Marietta Borough, Lancaster County.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Next item is 5A, Subcommittee Report on Wastewater and Stormwater. Ken, you're up.
Good evening, Chris and council. It's good to be with you. The Water Sewer Committee has just a couple actions of business to share, and that the first is with Inframark. Is Doug with us or Nate with us this evening?
Here, Ken, Doug.
Doug's here.
Doug is here.
Hey, Doug, good evening. Welcome. Can you share with us some of the activities over the past month, please?
Sure. So for as far as finances go for this month, we're over budget for the month of $45,361, mainly due to the cleaning of tank 23, which cost $33,605, which the revenue for that was spread over the year. So that was a one-time occurrence. We're currently $70,470 over for the year, but all of our major expenses should already be covered, and I expect that number to come down significantly before the end of the year. Also, we're currently working with NTech to sell Chesapeake Bay nutrient credits. They're working right now on a sale of about $33,000 worth of those credits. The flow at the wastewater plant was down 8.2% from August to 2.44 million gallons per day. Flow at the water plant, daily average flow is the same as in August at 1.83 million gallons a day. Emergency callouts, we had 7 emergency callouts, all mainly for the same thing from September 27th to September 30th, related to low flow conditions at our influent pump station. Turns out it was we had changed a set point. The computer program wasn't quite adjusted for that set point. We had that adjusted and reprogrammed, and it alleviated the problem. Capital projects at the wastewater plant, the ones that we're still working on is PS1 wet well gate. That's been in the process. We're just waiting for the contractor to give us a date to complete that. We expect that to be within the next month. NIR pump rebuild is in progress, and we did order a new tank mixer pump based on the authority meeting. At the water plant, well 3 pump replacement was actually completed today, and that is back online as of today with no issues. Staffing, we did hire 1 new person that's going to be starting on November 19th, and we still have 1 position open. And if there's any other questions on my report.
I think we might have a few questions, Doug.
Sure.
Thank you. Could you take us back to what's driving us being over budget on the wastewater facility, the extra cleaning in that tank? Was that part of the budget that just hit all at one time?
Yes, yeah, it was budgeted.
Extra work.
Yeah, it was budgeted a little bit every month for the year, but we knew it was going to all hit at one time for this month. So that was covered under the budget. We should still be under on our sludge budget.
Do you see any opportunities to get back in under our budgeted numbers as we finish out the year?
Yeah, we're going to try. We're being very kind of stingy with our budget right now. We're holding off on a couple chemical orders that were just going to be a nicety to have, which we're going to probably make up for next year because next year the budget's looking a little better. We saved some money on some chemicals this year. with switching to some powdered magnesium. And like I said, that number should come down significantly. All of our major expenses have pretty much been covered for the year.
Any other questions from council?
No, Ken?
Doug, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for all that
Thank
you're
you.
doing there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, thank you, Ken. Next item,
I'd like to
5B. Oh, sorry, Ken, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Infomark September report for the water wastewater facility, Chris.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. I'm assuming you meant approved, Ken. I think it was the delay.
Delay, yeah.
Yes. Am I coming through choppy right now?
You just happened to be delayed right after I said those
Okay. Hey,
opposed. So no worries. We got you. Anything else, Ken?
okay. Hey, Chris, just for the audience, the water, yes, the Water Sewer Committee has been busy on several budget projects for next year. We'll hear more about those projects in the budget meeting next month. I would like to share the rate study results, if we can. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The rate study was a goal of the Water Sewer Committee at the beginning of the year. We were seeking to use the capital plan as well as the operating plan to help develop a better cost for a fee going forward. We also asked Infomark to provide some of the evaluations of equipment and future repairs so we could put it into our capital plan. And we also chose to use a financial consultant to help us evaluate these costs and develop a good fee or an appropriate fee for the year ahead. The results were presented to the Water Sewer Committee on September or October 13th, and they're quite good. So let's focus on the water side, on the water fund. The highlights are that the water facility treats about 3 million gallons of water per day. We have no debt, and we do have a strong cash reserve that has earned us a Moody's AAA rating. The Lititz Borough water rates are some of the lowest rates studied in the sample group. The last rate increase was in 2018, and our committee is recommending no rate increase for 2025. Under the sewer fund, we have also some similar good results. The sewer system serves both Lititz Borough and Warwick Township. We have about $3.9 million in debt, which will be paid off in 2030. The annual service of that debt is $592,000. We do have a strong cash reserve that has earned us a Moody's AAA rating. The Lititz Borough sewer rates are below the average rate in the sample group studied. The last rate increase was 2018, and our recommendation is to have no rate change in 2025. Now, our next steps are important. If we don't increase our rates and our expenses remain near our projections, we will have a drastic decrease in our cash on hand over a 10-year span. So we will determine some type of rate increase scenario in 2025 for the years ahead. We also, one of our goals will be to develop a fund balance policy similar to what we have for the general fund while maintaining a AAA Moody's rating for both the water and the sewer fund. One other note from my side was that we had a borough authority meeting here recently. It was last week, and there was some really good information shared. There's 2 points I'd like to share. One is that the wastewater facility has a centrifuge that dewaters some of the sludge that comes out of that facility. It processes about 3 days per week in the winter and about 1 day per week in the summer. The staff and leadership there feel that the existing centrifuge is adequate. It's great, but if we ever have a disruption or interruption of service, it could be costly to remove the sludge or from the facility. So Intech, our engineering firm, provided 5 options to study and to see what would be the best for the Lititz Borough. So number 1 was purchase long lead time spare parts. Number 2 was to rent a temporary centrifuge equipment. Number 3 was to purchase and install a second centrifuge. Number 4 was to purchase and install a skid-mounted centrifuge. And number 5 was to haul sludge without thickening or drying. After a thorough examination over several months, Intech recommends the purchasing of the long lead time spare parts. And these advantages would help us because spare parts will be on hand for quick installation by local contractors, and that gives us a rapid repair time. Purchasing materials now would insulate material costs from rising inflation. And then the third reason, providing flexibility to swap out existing components with spare parts for scheduled maintenance. That gives them a wonderful advantage to anticipate repairs and keep things moving. Number 4, there's no obstruction to existing equipment or assets. We have the storage space for these spare parts. That's what that says. And then finally, it retains the equipment that is already familiar to the operators. So it allows for smooth functioning and maintaining of that equipment. So that was approved from the Borough Authority. And then finally, Infomark approached the team for some additional materials that they need to do their jobs. And so 3 items were approved for purchase. And that's the water sewer report. I would like to ask Mary to share with us about the stormwater meeting she had.
Thank you, Ken. Not much to report on stormwater right now. I guess the one thing I just want to remind people of is that we are doing leaf collection right now. Keep the leaves away from the storm inlets. And Rob, any reports, or Elijah, any reports of any problems with the leaf collection so far that we're aware of? I know some people did put leaves out early, but we were able to resolve that. Leaf collection continues through, I believe it's December 15th. Sound right? So I just want to encourage people to, if you're listening out there here in the audience, if you see leaves gathering in an inlet, clean them out for us. Our public works crew would appreciate the help. And it helps prevent localized flooding and keeps the leaves out of the stormwater system. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Mary. That's it for us, Chris.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Mary. Next item of business is the subcommittee report. Yes, sir. Come on up, Mr. Rhoda.
Ken, do you have anything about PFAs? What's going on with the PFAs with the water and sewer?
Are you talking about PFAS?
Yeah.
Do we want to go to Doug for that?
Yeah, Doug. We did bring that up in the recent meeting. Is Doug still there?
Yep, Doug's going to talk about it, Ken.
Yeah, we're in good shape. Go ahead, Doug.
He's looking up the data. Yep, he's looking up the data.
Okay, so the PFAS has been in the news lately. It's been a really big deal. The state has set it up so that all the water systems are required to test every quarter this year to determine if any further treatment of the water or anything is going to be necessary in the future, or any further testing. There is nothing set in stone yet. The water that we've been testing here in Lititz has been well under any of the trigger levels. We had a PFOS result of 2.0, which is 1/10 of 1 milligram per liter above what the test will actually read. And then PFOA is at a 2.5. And that was pretty much as high as we've gotten. So right now, I would say that we don't have a whole lot to worry about in this water system.
So let me see if I can summarize this. I'm not going to ask you to tell us what PFAS stands for.
Good, because I'd have to look it up.
I've got it right here, Mary.
That's one pass on the acronym.
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I have it here if you
But
want me to try and read it.
That's okay. Then Elijah would have to write it down and all that. So forever chemicals is what we're talking about here.
Correct.
They are in almost everything. Water is a target right now
Right.
for regulation, and there are 2 of the 100 and something chemicals that are in the group PFAS, PFAS. The 2 that we're testing for are PFOA and PFOS.
Correct.
I believe, and yes, our numbers are very low, and we are very lucky. The city of Lancaster has just had to notify all of their water customers that they have elevated levels, and the costs that are going to be borne by people to deal with this are astronomical. So you heard Ken say we have the lowest water rates in the study area. We have the lowest sewer rates in the study area, and we have low PFAS numbers. So, and we've got, we've just completed and submitted our inventory of lead galvanized service lines in the borough, and that's also a very low number. I think it's around 180.
162.
Rob knew exactly, 182. So we'll be developing a plan to get those replaced in the next, we've got 10 years starting in 3 years, I believe, right? So we will have some additional costs to deal with our water system, but thankfully, thank you for the question. Thankfully, our PFAS numbers are low. So we're very fortunate. Thanks for the report.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mary. Any other questions? Bob, anything online? Okay. Without further ado, Tanea.
Okay. Activity permit. I've got one for the Church Square Carol Sing. Going to take place on December 12th, 2024, between 6:30 and 8 p.m. It's going to be put on by the Lititz Historical Foundation, and it's located at the Moravian Church Square. It's going to be an annual Christmas Carol Sing. I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual Carol Sing on December 12th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, I have a handicap parking space request. This individual does possess a valid Pennsylvania handicap parking place card. She would like a handicap parking space outside of her home on Keller Drive. She has injuries to her knees and back, and the area in front of her residence on Keller Drive would be much easier for her to get in and out of her vehicle. So I'd like to make a motion to approve a handicap parking space outside of 731 Keller Drive in Lititz.
Can I just?
Oh, yeah, questions? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
A quick question. There is on-street parking there on Keller Drive. Is that correct, or would this be an exception? There's on-street parking. Okay, thank you. Yep, that's all.
This is a temporary or permanent?
This is a permanent.
We have a motion? Question?
I second your motion. I'll second your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, just want to let everybody know, we received a letter to advise the borough. There's anticipated impact on traffic patterns in the area where the Warwick Township is going to be doing a meter vault work. So this project, they've indicated that the work is going to be on Grand Street, and that will occur November 7th through the 15th of the borough. And they're also going to be working on Brookfield Road, which is by Linear Park, and that will occur November 18th through the December 2nd. So they're going to, one lane is still going to be open on Grand Street for the duration of the work. As for Brookfield Road, though, both lanes are going to be expected to be closed for the location of that meter vault. And that will be, again, November 18th through the December 2nd. So the first 4 homes on Brookfield Road will be accessible via Market Street, but the Brookfield Road residents located north of the meter vault work will need to access their homes by the Laurie Lane and Robin Hill Drive areas. Anybody have any questions about that?
I presume the township is taking care of all of the signage and notifications of residents and all of that, right? Okay, thank you.
And one other thing I wanted to just let you know about the Lancaster County Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is labeled as MPO, is seeking public input through a survey available until this Thursday. This survey focuses on the traffic safety action plan aimed at reducing fatalities, serious injuries from traffic crashes. So participants can share how they travel around Lancaster County, their feelings of safety on the roadways, and any specific safety concerns that they may have. So you can find the survey link. It's in the news section of our borough's website. Click on that, and definitely our feedback's valuable to help improve road safety for everybody. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tanea. Subcommittee report on finances. Ken.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Finance has 3 items to report on tonight. Council, in front of you, you have our financial statement for the month, and you'll notice that our revenue is about 92% of our budget collected. There are a few lines that were greater than budgeted, but most are below what we expected. Expenses are about 79% of the budget at this point of the year, but this percentage will increase when we receive all of our paving invoices for phase 1 and 2. So some significant invoices headed our way. One thing to note is we received the insurance payment from the insurance company for the East Main Street repair of the water main this summer. That came in today. Would like to comment that our team has been very busy along with all of the departments throughout the borough working on the 2025 budget. We've had great discussions and participation from everybody, so really appreciate that. Would also like to call everybody's attention to a public budget meeting that we have scheduled for November 12th beginning at 5:30 p.m. in Borough Hall. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the financial statement and pay all of our invoices.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The second item of business is just reporting in from our office plan administrator for our chief administrative officer for some minimum municipal obligation for the Lititz Borough Municipal Employee Pension Plans. So this is a requirement each year that we inform the governing council of the municipality's minimum municipal obligation for the following year, and we have to do that each year. This memo was prepared under the guidance of Foster & Foster, our plan's actuary, and this satisfies all the requirements under this Act 205 that we're responsible to follow through on. So just letting everybody know that our obligation for the non-uniform pension plan is $196,724 for next year, and then our obligation for the police department pension plan is $302,263 for next year. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025 minimum municipal obligation for the Lititz Borough Municipal Employee Pension Plan as advertised by Foster & Foster.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then finally, Chris, Lititz Borough has received a generous donation in lieu of taxes. I'd like to thank the Lititz Moravian Church for their generous financial donation. And that wraps it up for tonight.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Carson, come on.
Dave Carson, 220 East 6th Street. I want to ask Ken,
with the Budget Review Committee, will that be online on Zoom?
Ken, did you hear that
Yeah.
question from Dave?
Dave, did you say the public budget meeting, will it be on
Yes.
Zoom?
Will that be on Zoom for the public to see?
I think we've done that every year that I've been here, so I would anticipate doing it again. Is that right, Rob?
Rob's shaking his head, yes.
Yeah, we
Yes, we can do
everyone's
that.
just up here having their dinner up at the
Right.
microphone so everyone can hear it, but that's what we've done the past
But it will be
several
on
years.
Zoom, just like a regular meeting. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Rob, anything online? No? Okay. Subcommittee report on personnel, Jerry.
Yes, thank you. The following recommendations have, following our process to appoint residents to the various committees and commission. These processes include completing a volunteer application, interview with myself as the chairperson of the committee, a final approval by the Borough Council, and of course, residents need to be members and residents of Lititz Borough. I also always check with the chairperson of the committee before I make these recommendations to make sure they are in agreement with what I am recommending. So my first recommendation is to the Borough Authority. We just heard about the Lititz Borough Authority tonight and all the important work that they do. That authority was originally established as the Sewer Authority in 1947 for the purpose of constructing, improving, maintaining, and operating, owning or leasing sewers, water systems, or parts thereof, and water treatment works. So it's really an important commission that we need to appoint people to. Members of the Borough Authority are appointed to 5-year term. So today, my first recommendation is I am recommending Scott H. Hain to the Borough Authority as he's actually an ongoing member and is eligible for renewal. As you know, Scott is Director of Municipal Services for the David Miller Associates. The Municipal Services provides engineering services to many municipalities in Lancaster County. Scott has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the University of Delaware, and his engineering expertise provides a valuable resource to the authority. And according to the chair of the authority, Scott has attended meetings faithfully, and his insights and strategic planning skills bring value to the authority. So I am recommending Scott H. Hain to a 5-year term on the Lititz Borough Authority effective January 1st, 2025.
Question, Jerry, were there any other applicants that were considered for that position? And I see there are 3 positions that expire, I think, at the end of this year. Is
Correct,
that
that's correct, yes.
Okay.
So,
Were there any
no,
other?
there were no other ones because this is a kind of renewal. His term is up and he's available for another 5 years. To be very transparent, I'm hoping that we have other people who will apply for these positions. We are trying to promote that through our website. As I talk to various community organizations, I'll always make that announcement. So yes, we would like to have more people in the bullpen if we could, but this is a very specific kind of skill that we need with the Borough Authority, with the kind of technology that they deal with. And Scott provides a great value to the committee for that.
Yeah, I understand and agree. This is whenever a municipality establishes authority, you hand over control. And so it is important that we are very thoughtful about the membership of this. So any word on the other 2 members'
No,
terms expire?
I don't have any
Might
more
be.
update
Okay.
on that.
I'm sorry, I think you said that. Okay. So I would move that we approve Scott Hain for renewal for an additional 5-year term on the Lititz Borough Authority.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
My second recommendation is to the Planning Commission. And I think most of us know that the Planning Commission is to make recommendations to the council for various future needs of growth in the borough. So I'm recommending J. Daniel Book. Dan has been involved in commercial building in various positions as a general contractor and has owned his own construction company, ACI Construction. His knowledge in building construction, working with various municipal zoning officers, bidding projects, working with planning groups, along with his organizational leadership skills, uniquely qualifies him to be a member as an alternate to the Planning Commission. He has a high commitment to assuring that Lancaster Borough follows regional and local planning recommendations. He's also attended a Planning Commission meeting to learn about the work of the commission. So I am recommending J. Daniel Book to a 4-year term as an alternate member of the Planning Commission effective January 1st, 2025.
Quick question on this one, Jerry. We have a current commission made up of 5 members. We have all 5 seats, 5
Correct.
members, and they're all filled now with the appointment most recently of Todd Dickinson from an alternate to a full member, right? So how many alternates do we generally try to have?
Just 2, yeah.
2 alternates.
Typically, we have at least one. There have been up to 2 in our time. I've served as an alternate back when the board was comprised of 3 members of Dirk and Edson, just from the sheer fact of them needing to recuse themselves and that I'm at every meeting. I would prefer not to do that if we have people that are interested. But yes, you can have none, 1, or 2. So there is still a space for an alternate if there is an interested person.
It's good to have alternates because they can learn the ropes, if you will, of the commission work. And then when we have other openings, people can move into that.
Okay, so speaking of learning the ropes, I think we had talked about this, there's some really good training out there for people who serve on these boards, or these, something like the Planning Commission. And I would really love to see us make that a priority for our commission members, and also to express a intention that they do that, particularly if they're in an alternate position in that learning phase. It's a great time for them to really understand the ethics and procedures and everything that you have to follow to do that work to its highest level, which is obviously what we expect here in the borough. So
Yeah, I would think that according to Dan and who he is, he would be certainly interested and willing to learn. I think that's something that the chair of the committee needs to weigh in on. I've already talked to the chair of the committee about this appointment. He's very supportive of it. But any training that's available, I'm sure people would lend themselves to when it's available.
great. With that, are there any other questions? I'll move that we appoint J. Daniel Book as an alternate on the Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome. Just a reminder to people in the audience and to the public, again, we're still welcoming other volunteers to join our various committees. Committees are listed on our website, so feel free to look at those and fill out the questionnaire if you're so moved. Thank you. Update on the contract. Okay. So the next item on the list is an update on the contract negotiations. So during the past several months, members of the Lititz Borough Personnel Committee, including myself as chair, along with Christina Sensenik and Steve Lee, have been negotiating with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, which represents the Public Works Department, and with the Lititz Borough Police Officers Association. The committee negotiated with several goals, These included, we wanted a 3-year contract. We negotiated benefits that would not have a tax increase for our borough. We were comparing benefits with other municipalities to make sure that we were in line with them and that we were competitive. Our benefits want to support the longevity and the benefits of retiring employees. We want to assure the sustainability of the pension fund. And we want to balance what is best for the employee while at the same time assuring that the borough could fund the benefits. As much as possible, we tried to arrive at some equity among our various departments. And of course, we wanted to make sure that our borough finance committee was in agreement with our negotiations. So our committee was successful in accomplishing these goals. Our negotiations with these unions have been very cordial and respectful with all parties. But just today, the Personnel Committee settled with the Public Works Department, and the police officer's contract has been agreed to, but there are several minor language changes that are not material that need to be finalized. So based on these issues, the members of the Borough Council have not had a chance to review the final contracts. And therefore, approval of these contracts will need to be tabled and delayed until a future meeting. It will be important that we finalize some of these language issues and then get them out to the members of the council for consideration. But I've been real pleased with how these negotiations have gone. Thank you, Chris, for your work, and Steve's not here for our efforts. It's taken many hours of meeting time, and but we've arrived, I think, at a very acceptable and good place for these 3-year contracts, which would be in effect January 1st, 2025.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for all of your hard work on that. And we thank as well the members of our Public Works crew and the members of our police association as well. Okay. What up, Mr. Carson?
You state my name again, Dave Carson.
We know who you are.
It's somewhat related to the police. And again, I'm not against the police, don't get anything out there, but our police chief's retiring. I asked a few months ago about what are we considering and as an alternative, just hiring a police chief, meaning regionalization. Spoke with Jerry, doesn't seem to be any discussion towards that. My concern is it's going to be put aside and not discussed. I think it needs to be discussed. I ask you to discuss it, please. And the fact that, as I pointed out, we do pay significantly more for our police services than Warwick Township does. I know there's comparison issues, but in transparency and in fairness to our taxpayers, I think now is the time to do it. Not go down the path and hire a police chief and then think about it. Now is the time, in my opinion, to think about it. So I'm asking, has there been discussion? Will there be discussion? How will the public be included or told about that? Again, I'm not against it. I like our police generally. I think they do a good job, but we're paying significantly a lot more. And when you raise taxes, as taxes were raised, we need to get the best value. And that seems to be the trend I handed out a few months ago from the Pennsylvania Department of Community Education, I believe, development, about they even assist and provide input and help to look at it. And we seem to have a perfect partner. Warwick Township, after the borough, East Petersburg Borough just joined. I think it's something that we need to address now while we're discussing this. So I ask you to please consider that and to go down that route as well.
To answer your two questions, yes, there has been discussion, and yes, discussion.
Okay.
And you were actually involved in some of that discussion. Thank you again for your comments. We
So that will
appreciate your
be
time.
portrayed or relayed to the public and be more public input about that? So what discussion? I don't recall that I had discussion about it.
There was a survey that was
Oh, okay,
done,
right. But
so,
that's the police chief. I'm talking about
That's the
regionalization.
start, yes.
Okay,
yes,
so that will
that's
be
the
included?
start, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you, David. Rob, anything online? Okay, moving on. Subcommittee report on planning. That's me. Nothing to report other than the Planning Commission meeting is the first Tuesday of the month, so November 5th, the next one, and it will be happening even though it's the big day.
Yes.
Thank you. Subcommittee report on zoning, Mary.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Subcommittee report on buildings and grounds, Ken.
Yeah, it's just two items. The committee has submitted their budget for consideration for 2025. There was no meeting in October. However, we do plan to meet in November 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Subcommittee report on benefits and insurance, Jerry.
Yes, I have a quick update. At a previous meeting, I reported that the borough healthcare coverage is with a intergovernmental insurance cooperative. This cooperative is a unique group purchasing plan, including other municipalities. The Benecon Group manages the cooperative and annually provides a report about health insurance costs and claims. I'm happy to report in the summary of the report stated that Lititz Borough Health insurance cost will be decreased by 1% in 2025. When insurance costs have been going up, to have a decrease in our insurance costs for 2025 is very good. The average saving is $9,102. And this is due to the borough's low claims in 2024. So good news for the borough related to our healthcare coverage and the health of our employees.
Thank you, Jerry. Any questions?
That's all I have.
Thank you, Jerry. Subcommittee report on regional plan, Mary.
Very little to report. We are beginning conversations with Elizabeth, and I'm looking to Elijah because he and I are in this together. We're beginning to talk with Elizabeth and Warwick Township about how we are going to organize officially for implementation. We're going to be getting a meeting together in the next couple of weeks, I think, a few weeks. We'll get together as soon as we can. Everybody is very busy with budgets right now, so it's kind of hard to get schedules aligned when we can do that. Elijah and I, along with Barb Kreider from Warwick Township, attended a meeting last week with the Coalition for Sustainable Housing, which is a coalition of 30 or so organizations. It could be private developers, nonprofit housing developers, organizations that provide support with housing financing, a large group of people who are all working towards more sustainable, affordable housing within the county. And we had the opportunity to present to them on Friday and have a good conversation with them about how we're moving forward in the borough. Elijah gave a great presentation on the housing related components of strengthening community 2030, and identified for them some of the zoning changes that are in process now through the Planning Commission. And we look forward to continuing to engage with them. They are beginning to work with other municipalities and really put together a framework for looking at zoning changes and how some zoning changes can help with more housing access and affordability. And we have actually enacted a number of the recommendations that they're going to be pursuing. So Elijah, is there anything you want to add about that meeting we had or other things related to the implementation?
I think it was a good discussion. I think the one thing that's challenging and that not a lot of people had the answer for is how to make sure that when you build something, it's affordable. We don't have control over who's going to be buying properties or who's going to necessarily be building. We can approve what they're building, how they build it, but ultimately, if it's going to end up on the market, there's very little assurance that it's probably going to be what's considered affordable, at least in the traditional sense. So that's kind of the missing idea is, you know, if you are looking to lease to teachers, firefighters, people that work at Moravian Manor, Luther Acres, Rock Lititz, that might not be making they're making a decent wage, but not an incredible wage, how they can still have homes in this community. And unfortunately, I wasn't expecting all the answers, and it's a challenging thing if you just allow things to go into the open market.
Thank you, Elijah. So we're continuing to gather names of people who are interested in being involved in this process. So if you know of people, please tell them we're open to their input, and we will probably 2025 will get going much more intentionally with the implementation of the plan. And Ron, yep.
I was going to say,
Getting your steps in tonight.
I guess you already knew this, but how can the firefighters, the teachers compete with these hedge fund guys? They can't even compete. I mean, has there been any consideration with that? Are there alternatives to that? That's number one. And my second question is, in regards of homes, traffic study for East 6th Street. I'd just like to know where we are with that. Thank you.
So I'll sort of respond to both. That's fine. To our knowledge, the hedge fund purchasing of homes in the borough has not been occurring, at least not that we've seen. They seem to be local purchasers or people moving here and living in the homes. So I've heard of that in other locations, but as of right now, we've not seen that, at least to my awareness. For the 6th Street traffic study, we did meet with Grove Miller, which is our traffic engineer, beginning of October. I just received the scope from them last week. I have a couple questions. I was kind of coordinating with Scott. Scott has welcomed a new baby to his family, so he's a little busy. But I think I'm going to need to follow up with Jay also about Park Lane. So I was planning on doing that tomorrow and kind of going over that, but it is in the works. So.
Thank you, Ron. Mary. A question? Okay, council members, you have received reports from the borough engineers. Are there any questions? No. All right, how about the report by the mayor and the chief?
No report for me.
Nothing for the chief? Okay, thank you both. Reports by the managing directors. Rob, do you want to go first?
Just a few items. First, Andy wanted me to let everyone know that the paving repairs on Spruce Street have begun, and our phase 2, which is Arrowhead, the concrete work should begin next week, weather permitting. I wanted to let everyone know with letter E there, the Borough Hall HVAC replacement. This is something that'll be in our 2025 budget, but we've had some good meetings with Garden Spot Mechanical and the engineer. We have a good plan going forward for next year for both controls and the units. And the other thing I want to let you know about that just happened last week was our elevator was out of service for a few days. We did get it repaired. It's about $4,400. Just as a heads up for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Did anybody get stuck in the elevator?
No, fortunately it was middle of the night, so we were lucky there.
So, Rob, on the street repair, my understanding that when street repairs are started or completed, that's when sidewalk repairs or people that need to replace their sidewalks, they get a notice about that. On those streets, are there any issues around sidewalks that need to be repaired? That you know of? I know that's
not that I know of. I don't even think Andy has walked the Spruce Street areas yet. Usually they wait till all the paving's complete. They'll walk, they'll mark, and then they'll send out letters to those people who need repairs.
Okay.
There are a lot of issues on First Street.
I know.
The trees.
Yes, I know. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Rob? Oh, thank you, Rob. Elijah?
Thank you. So 2 things to report. First one is the Front Street easement for the water line replacement next year. There's 2 of them that we're looking for. One, which is near north of Wood Stream. We've talked with the owners and they would like essentially a small payment for the permanent easement. We proposed about $1,400. They agreed. And they are there's going to be that agreement is going to be on the November agenda for approval. The other one is near Versatech. That one is a little bit more complex because it involves a subdivision land development plan that was recorded over 20 years ago and never developed. Part of that's using an easement. So I'm talking with Mike Davis about how that puts the dedicated easement if the plan is essentially defunct at this point. The other thing I wanted to share is I just got notification this morning from Colliers, who is our engineer for the runabout line. We should have the final plans, 100% plans from them by November 13th. And Norfolk Southern is looking to bid this in January. So this immediately followed up with another email to the solicitor saying we need to finalize the last of the right of way, which is out of the school district. So.
All right, progress.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do we need to do to keep the process going with the solicitor relative to the school district?
I think just keep nudging. So it's something that the school district is aware of. It's something that their attorney was working on. And essentially my understanding is that the attorneys need to work it out, but I am nudging him as frequently as I can without being too irritating.
Appreciate that.
Elijah, if you could just add that to the agenda for the meeting we're going to have with the superintendent.
Yes. Yeah.
And also, can you just clarify the planning and zoning hearing board workshop?
Yes, thank you for the reminder. My report said it was going to be after the November council meeting. It's actually going to be after the November planning commission meeting. So this will be on November 5th. We're expecting it probably at 8 o'clock at the earliest, but essentially we're going to go through the planning commission meeting, conduct the business, and then planning commission and zoning are going to have a public workshop to essentially discuss on our end the changes in the comp plan and what zoning changes are going to come out of that we're pursuing, but also just to have an open discussion about some of the cases they're seeing, any kind of questions, because if there is any change to the zoning, that will come before planning and council. Zoning is interpreting. And as I share with Mary, sometimes these discussions are good because the one example I keep coming to is several years ago, there were many zoning cases that were associated with front porches being added to homes. And it was this area of the zoning ordinance was called front porch additions. So anyone that wanted to add it, Lori's interpretation was it had to come before zoning. The question is, why are we requiring them to come before zoning when every new home in the borough is required to have it by right? And it turns out that historically, that was because people were enclosing the porches to make an extra room. And it was called a front porch addition and trying to discourage that. And that was never clear in the ordinance. And so just some of that discussion of why are we doing this? Does this make sense to have that kind of discussion? So that will be after the planning commission. Public is, invited to be here, but it's essentially just going to be a dialogue between, we're not even sure if the full board is going to be there, if it's just going to be a member or two, but the planning commission will be there. So.
Okay, good.
So Tanea and I are the zoning hearing or the zoning committee. So I'll be attending. I don't know if you plan to attend, but we can talk about that.
Okay.
And planning.
Yeah, Chris and I are part
We'll be there.
of planning, so we're.
Any other comments, questions? Rob, anything online? No new business tonight, no unfinished business, no other business, and now is the time for public comments and questions on anything that was not on the agenda.
I
Yes.
just wanted to call attention to an item that was in our packets for Veterans Day. We received a Veterans Day flyer for an event on Sunday, November 10th at 1 p.m. At the Veterans Honor Park.
Thank you,
Call
Mary.
attention to that.
Yeah, thank you. Rich, come on up.
Again, Rich Moats, representing a homeowner and from the park. I'd like to just comment on the situation with, this is a special town. This town of Lititz is different from all other towns. And there's two reasons for that. One started early with the church, the way they developed this town. but through the years, our police department was a big part of Lititz. And our police department is still a big part of Lititz, okay? No other police department, the regional, would not have any clue on how to handle all the things that happen in Lititz. They don't happen in those other towns. There is basically no other towns surrounding this area. So if we did go to a regional facility, they would have to actually create a new thing, probably charge us more because we're Lititz and we're going to require more people. So, again, I commend our police department, and, you know, we could do so many things and we save so much money everywhere else. We can afford the extra money that it may take to have a superb unit. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Rich.
Can I follow up on that just real quick? And I shared this with Chief Nye the other day. I had an experience on Columbus Day with my son and granddaughters who were visiting from New Orleans. In my excitement, I wanted to show my granddaughters the borough hall and the borough room and that kind of thing. And my wife was with me, and she wasn't really excited coming up here. She's already seen it. So she was sitting down front of in the borough hall. And while she was sitting there outside, a police officer came up to her and asked if she needed any help. And she told him no, that she was my wife and that my granddaughters were inside visiting touring the borough hall. And then it was actually Sergeant Detz, when he discovered that Lynette was my wife, he said, well, why don't your grandchildren come and tour the police, the police department? So he invited us in to tour the police station. So Flora, who's age 11, and Esther, who's age 15, enjoyed seeing the holding cells, the evidence room, the 2 jail cells in the basement of the department. And Sergeant Detz explained how a person is treated when they are arrested, including how long they can be detained in the holding cell. He shared stories about kind of crimes that the police officers investigate. And he even invited Esther to step inside the cell to have her picture taken. So our granddaughters enjoyed the police department visit a lot more than the tour of the borough hall and this meeting room. I just wanted to give that as an example that, yeah, we do have a wonderful police department. Sergeant Detz went out of his way to spend some time with my family and my grandchildren. They still talk about that. And so I think that's one of the things that make our police department special. So thanks for your leadership there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Rich, for your comments. And thank everyone for their comments. We really appreciate it when our residents come out and participate in the process. It's very important. We are a fantastic town. I walk around this town all the time, just in awe. Barefoot, by the way, too. And I'm just amazed at how beautiful of a town this is. But we do have real problems. We have a wonderful police force. We have a wonderful emergency services and fire department. But we're facing some real challenges. So please do, if you can, come to our budget meeting on November 12th and help us work through some of these things. We appreciate your input, all of it. We really, truly do. Yes, sir. Mr. Strayer.
Chris Strayer, Front Street. Just want to reiterate what Rich said about the parking on Water Street. Some of you may recall, not all of you were here, but I actually brought that to council's attention probably more than a year ago and said that the signage is not adequate. And no one really knows it exists. And it's silly to me that we are a year later, we still have no additional signage. There could be signage on Main Street directing people down there. Again, most people don't know that exists, and it seems like for a small amount of money, it would be helpful to our guests. I had the pleasure of doing some community service last week and crossing here at Broad and Orange. People were looking at me wondering what the heck I was doing there. I told them it was better than getting locked up, so I chose a community service route. But nonetheless, 2 things I did notice while doing that and thinking through parking in the borough, because that is an issue. It's my opinion that the corner of Broad Street on the south side, so just south of Orange Street, for some reason that stretch there is yellow longer than the other side, and it seems like it's way longer than it needs to be. just watching different trucks and whatnot take the turn, it would seem that we could probably gain at least 1 or 2 more parking spots. So again, across from the Clare Church, that intersection is pretty wide there. Trucks coming off of Orange Street, making the right, heading south towards the city, easily can make that turn. And why there's, I feel like almost 100 feet of yellow there seems excessive. And then the other thing I noticed, and maybe I'm not the only one that noticed this, but and maybe I'm just wrong on this, but it would appear that maybe the leaf vac truck has some issues, because I could literally see it coming 3 blocks away. And when it came through town, the amount of like debris it blew through the air, people literally trying to cover their face with their clothing, it seems excessive. We're talking about trying to keep our air and water clean, and the leaf vac truck is not doing its duty. It seems like it's making a bigger mess, frankly.
And it's the dry weather.
Yeah, it's
It is. I had that conversation with a couple of the employees earlier today that
Yeah.
it is.
And if I can just respond to the yellow line, appreciate you pointing that out. I do know that the bus pulls over there. I don't know how much space the bus takes, but they do unload there regularly with a person who is in a wheelchair. So if we were going to look at some kind of a reduction there, we would probably want to consider making accommodations for the bus so that it doesn't jam up that parking area.
I watched the truck come through there the other day and it struggled. So I don't know how easy it would be to reduce that space for a tractor trailer to come through there. On that side. Okay.
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 Yeah.
All right, Chief, for those who didn't hear that, Chief is going to look at the yellow lines on from Mr. Strayer's discussion. I'm assuming that has something to do with PennDOT as well, that, no, not really. Okay, all right, good. Have at it. Mr. Carson.
Just want to follow up. I thank Mr. Moats for his comments about the police, and I think it's a discussion that needs to be at least considered. No conclusions need to be made by anyone. We're all a community. We can all have input. Now's the time to think about it. Nobody's picking on anybody. We're looking for the best dollar and the best protection for what we can get. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything online, Rob? Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Yes.